All right. Hi, I'm Ricky. I'm one of the tender trainers. So we help subcontractors with their tendering. So basically, my goal is to help you make tendering as simple and successful as possible, so you can win those bigger contracts with less stress. I try and do these lives on a regular basis, although sometimes we have a bit of a break. But feel free to jump on, ask me a question, or also DM me anything would be a good topic to cover. This is your opportunity to hit me up about anything. All right, so let's get into this one. So I'm doing a little series of lives on the 4 Ps of tendering. So the 4 Ps of tendering are the areas that we focus on strengthening within our client's business for to cover tendering. So what are the 4 Ps? The 4 Ps are process, profit, professionalism, and protection. And we've had some really good results with our clients when we've implemented the 4 Ts in their business. So our clients, they've increased their win rate, they've won their biggest tenders, they've increased both their turnover and profit. So, you know, we're driven by results, and we've got results from strengthening these areas. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about the first P, which is process. Right, so process. Process is all about setting up structure and implementing a process within the business so that you and your team can achieve high caliber output each and every time, like a well-oiled machine. So it's about identifying who will do what in the process, what training they'll need, if we need to get additional people into the process. It's all about setting up this front end process so we've got something to follow to do the tendering. So why is this important? Why is this step important? Why is process important? So there's a few things with process, right? When you implement process, you're going to find a few things. One, you're going to find that things become simpler. So if you think about tendering as the whole element, you know, the whole thing just as tendering, it can be a bit overwhelming, for example. But when you break it down into small sections to follow, it becomes a lot simpler. You're following the process in small bite-sized pieces rather than thinking about the whole thing. You know, naturally things are going to become easier and simpler. Additionally, you know, deadlines are going to be easier to meet. So when you don't have process and you're not following process, and this is probably true if this is the case, you're going to find that you're working towards the end of the deadline and trying to get everything done right at the end of the deadline, right? But if you've got process and you're following a process, the work's going to be spread out a little bit more rather than crammed at that end section. And you'll find that the tender will come in and you'll know to work on this straight away and so on to get the tender complete rather than doing it all at the end. You're also going to find that it's easier to hand off parts of the process with control. So this is really important as you grow as a business and you start bringing in more people into the process. You'll be able to hand off different parts of the process to different people. So, you know, you might bring someone else in who does one part of the process and they will slip into that process and you'll still be completing like a well-oiled machine. But it's easier to do this when you've got process in place. You're also going to find that you and your team work better when they understand who is doing what and how they're fitting into the overall scheme or process. So when your whole team knows this is my part of the process to fit in to the overall process, and I know what every other team member's doing, you're gonna operate on a different level. It makes a big difference. So all large companies, they work off process or they work on process. They have a process for everything. So the tier one companies that I've worked for in my background, they have a process for absolutely everything. And this is how they can control their standards over multiple different jobs with different team members and even new team members, because they have a process to follow. It meets their minimum standards, and the team follow the process. So if you're not currently working to a process for your tendering, I would highly recommend that you implement a process. So sit down and think about what needs to happen in steps. Get it down. Get down the members of your team that will do each part of the process, and have it as a document. We do it in a flow chart so that the team can see it nice and clearly in a flow chart that moves along. I think it's a fantastic tool, and you should implement one if you don't have one already. And in fact, when we run our tender training, this is one of the first things that we do implement: getting a clear, workable process happening, making sure that all the important steps are covered and everyone in the team knows what they're doing. Right, so yeah, that's process. That's the first P. But basically, in summary, as a company, implementing this first step of our 4 Ps, so process, it's not only going to help you avoid those last-minute cram sessions to get tenders over the line, but it's also going to help you create high-quality, repeatable tenders every single time, just by following the same steps. All right, cool. Yeah, that's it. That's it for the first P. As I kind of mentioned at the start, this is just going to be a small series on the 4 Ps of tendering. So today was process. The next P is profit. I'm going to talk about profit next week in my next live. Yeah, stay tuned for that. And I hope you join me. Thanks, and I'll see you again soon.